Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum. I'd like to welcome everyone to another America's Islamic Heritage Museum program. Today we're going to talk with some of the team that's working together to produce a book about the life and times of Sister Clara Mohammed and the importance of having Sister Clara Mohammed. So what we're going to begin with is Sister Jamila Malik. She'll talk a little bit about the organization. Sister Jamila.
All right. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Thanks.
Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa dahu la sharika lah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. My name is Sister Jamila Malik, and I am the secretary of the Institute of Muslim American Studies, IMAS. I'm a longtime, decades friend of Dr. Zakiya Muhammad, and she asked me to come aboard to IMAS as she continued to write the book, the biography, the story, the manuscript on Clara Evans Muhammad, the wife of Elijah Muhammad and the mother of Imam Wafdi Muhammad. So as we're publishing the second part of the book, Mother of the Nation, Clara Evans Muhammad, we've come to a junction where more people wanted to know about the author. So we have a audio of Dr. Zakiya Muhammad's intention for writing the book. It's an interview, but the whole book, the last part, the part 2 that we're trying to publish and part 3 that Dr. Zakiya was writing under, she was writing under the angels of Allah that were calling her back. So it's a very difficult, very sensitive, but you can hear it in her voice. It was a very strenuous time that this was like the last audio that we have of Dr. Zakiya, I believe, unless it was the one where she was with Sister Judy in Detroit. So Sister Judy, you may proceed.
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. This is it's a very sensitive issue as to why Zakiya started writing this book. And it gives us an insight because the only thing that we have is her writing and this audio as to what prompted her to write the book. But from a more personal point of view, she was really intrigued with Sister Clara Mohammed. She was very familiar with her as being the wife of Elijah Muhammad, you know, the mother of Imam Muhammad. She was familiar with her being the cause, the reason behind the Sister Clara Mohammed School. But this was also a more personal interest that Zakiya had as the type of woman that she was, what her life was about, what she went through, what was going on at the time that she was facing, the challenges that she had. And Zakiya had the opportunity to interview over a period of time all of her living children at the time. She was in contact with them and various other members of the Nation of Islam that was present at the time, Sister Bernstein Muhammad, and a lot of people that we are familiar with, but Zakiya had in-depth conversations with them about Sister Clara. And the audio that you're about to hear gives us a little more insight into what Zakiya was thinking and feeling when she started writing the book, because she initially approached Imam Wafdi Muhammad about the book, and he had given her the permission. And then there was a period of time he came back, and you'll hear it on the video, on the audio, that he told her that he didn't want her to write the book. And so there was a period of time when she accepted that, and she didn't do anything. But you play it, Jamila, and then it'll give us a little more insight as to what was going on.
All right.
You have it, Jamila?
Yes. Oh, hold on. Can you hear it?
No, we
No.
cannot.
Can you hear it now?
1982, my God.
1982. I was the director.
Can you hear it?
No, it's,
Hold on 1 minute. I think you have to make me host. Jim.
you sharing it. Was sharing it for a minute.
Yeah, we'd heard it. We'd heard it.
And all of the schools around the country, at that time we had must have been about 48 schools.
What do you mean 48 schools?
48 Clara Mohammed schools throughout the United States.
Oh, mashallah.
We had the largest independent school system in the U.S. And we all met in Sedalia, North Carolina to celebrate this effort and also to celebrate this purchase of this property for a teacher's college and a boarding school. And it was a wonderful weekend. And so I asked the daughter of Clara Mohammed, the youngest daughter, if she would tell us about her mother.
Okay.
Because so many people in the community who are not aware of her mother.
Oh my God.
Walaikum salam. And she began to tell us things about her mother that we did not know. So it was a very exciting presentation she gave. And I decided right there and then that I wanted to write about her.
Okay.
And expressed that to her son, Imam W.D. Muhammad at the time. And he said, fine. He said, well, the first person you need to interview is my aunt Bernstein, who was in Detroit. Bernstein was the woman who was the secretary to W.D. Farad Muhammad.
Okay.
And she had a lot of inside information about that early experience in the 1930s. And I did just that. I followed up and I interviewed her. And it was very successful. So long story short, in 1982, after we all got back to our respective cities and back to our work, I got a call from the youngest daughter who I had interviewed. And she said, Zakia, she said, my brother, Imam W.D. Muhammad, asked me to thank you for your intention to write about his mother, our mother. She said, but he asked me to tell you that he has decided he's going to write the book on his mother.
Oh.
And that's what I said. I said, actually, I don't think I said anything. I was just...
Maybe you just gave him an idea.
I was stunned. And so after I recovered, I said to myself, wow, that's a big blow. I didn't expect that. But I stood down. I stood down. Pardon me. I stood down and said, well, he must have some reasons why he, chose to say that he would do the writing. So I left it alone. But I really didn't leave it alone. So in 1982, I officially stood down, but I continued to gather information about her, to interview her children, to listen to other people, and to keep a notebook on her life. And I did that.
Are you in a hurry to go? Otherwise, you can help me with this. Okay. You want some water?
No, thank you. So I just kept minding my business, still directing the schools, graduations, all those things. And, but on the side, I kept gathering information, collecting information, looking at our unique circumstance and figuring out this is a very unique circumstance, these people who have come to Al-Islam and the conditions on which they came. So I just kept doing that. And then the material became more voluminous, the interviews bigger and so forth. And
You just collected everything and kept it for yourself?
Yeah.
Didn't publish or didn't do anything?
And didn't even discuss it with anyone because he had asked me now to not do it.
Okay.
And I, said, okay. And then what happened this is from 82 to the 90s.
Oh.
One of our sisters who was a student at Harvard had a conference. And she invited me to the conference, and she invited a whole lot of other people to this conference.
Thank you so much. Okay. You guys come to your mom?
And at the conference, a sister came out. Thank you, Hasna.
You're welcome.
All right. Walaikum salam. Oh, can you take any of that garbage out for us? Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that. So, at the conference, one sister made a presentation about her dissertation.
Oh, which conference was that?
This was at Harvard University.
Oh, okay.
We had a Muslim sister who was a student at Harvard, and she had a big conference and invited Muslim scholars and students to come and present so that people could get a sense of what we were doing in America. And she invited one sister to come and present. Oh Allah.
Okay, I think she worries that we are going to be late for that.
Yeah, we have to go for
So
that.
I will continue with
on
that.
Monday. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, we gotta do it.
Yeah, this is really important. We have to.
Sister Judy, is that it?
Yes, that's the entire.
Okay.
And from there,
Could I,
go ahead.
okay. First of all, the conference was held in Harvard in 2000. First Islam in America conference. It was actually organized by Sister Precious Muhammad. If you all are not familiar with her, she's the third generation of Muslim from Boston. And everyone was at that conference. The Imam, his brother, Dr. Akbar Muhammad. It was quite all of the people from the different parts of the Muslim world here. And to the best of my knowledge, as Zakia was saying, she kept on working. And it was around about 1997, if I'm not mistaken, that she got contact with the Imam, or the Imam got back in contact with her. and gave her the go ahead with the project. This is mentioned, I think, in the introduction to the volume 1 that we published. Correct me all if I'm wrong. When she told the story, and the interesting thing about this, there are other things been written, but the interviews that she was able to get with family members, individually, those interviews, just themselves, they're priceless. But she was able to interview, as she said, most all the living children of Ahmadiyya Muhammad and Sister Clara. And at the same time, I think she wasn't able to get either Ethel Sharif or Raymond Sharif, but she got Hassan Sharif, who was the first grandchild of Elijah and Clara. And really, today, he's like, in relationship to that family, he's like the patriarch right now. But she was able to, interview him. And she got Nathaniel, she got the rest of the family members, and I think Jabba's family, she was able to interview either one of his daughters or one of the sons. And of course, Halema, that was Raya, Sister Lottie, her daughter, I believe. So just the interviews themselves, though they're not in the book, they went, they carried some. What they remind me of was the interviews that were done during the WPA project during the 30s, in terms of, interviews were done at that time with people who come from slave backgrounds. So it's that more than anything else distinguishes this book, because up until this time, really, as a community, we weren't really given access to a lot of different people, for different reasons, okay? Primarily because in dealing with people who didn't know us, they always had a hidden agenda in terms of dealing with the community. So I just want to, say that to give a little more background. And she was able, let me explain this too, with Dr. Zakiya. At the time she was dealing with this, she was over the school in California, and she had a legal problem with those people, and she ended up winning a lawsuit close to, I think it was $800,000 against those. All I can call them is they was racist people out there in California. So what she did, she was able to utilize that to travel and to meet with all of the different people who were still alive, who had interacted with Sister Clara Mohammed. One of the interesting things I think in the book is when she was able to interview Dr. Akbar Muhammad's first wife. I forgot her name, but she had gone to Africa with Sister Clara, and that's a very fascinating thing in the book. So that's, we can continue. I just wanted to kind of give a little background. Okay, Sister Judy.
Yes, I think that gives us a good background for the foundation that was laid for the book.
Mm-hmm.
And as Zakiya began to, her health began to deteriorate, then that's when she got all of us together and, gave us all the manuscript, and, here we are now. The first volume has been published, and we're in the process of, inshallah, publishing volumes 1 and 2. I'm sorry, 2 and 3. So the whole project of the book was a labor of love, Zakiya. This was, the last 10, 10, 15, maybe years of her life, she devoted to this book.
That's right.
And so, you know, it's been a labor of love for us to continue, because we feel that there's information in the book that has not been told. You know, it gives a different view, understanding of who Clara Mohammed was and what she stood for, and what she represented for our community. A woman that we knew some people knew, but the vast majority of people did not know much about Clara Mohammed. They saw her, but what she went through, the challenges that she had, how she stood, and Zakiya gives just a little more insight. There's a statement that's always been made about the stand. Well, what behind that? What was she going through? What was she dealing with? What were the challenges in our country at that particular time? The racism and the stigmatism that she had to face raising a family, and the different challenges that she had. I knew of Clara Mohammed, but not to the extent that explains about her in this book. So,
And I think what's more important for everybody, even for the rest of the world, you know, this document, particularly because it was what we call first person participants, right? It's really the beginning of the true history of the Nation of Islam.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
in the true sense of the word, you know.
Yes.
Mostly everybody in the last few years, even now, they've all been outsiders who've talked about us, and they always looked at the community. They always looked at us in terms of political terms. They never understood the religious element that was being developed at the time. But this is really, for those who read the book, they will see a lot of things that they never knew about the beginning of the Nation of Islam.
Exactly. Yes.
Question then. For you, Sister Judy, and for you, Brother Bilal, what are one or 2 points that you got out of the book that you learned that you was not aware of? Sister Judy first.
And we use this phrase very, very loosely. She was a God-fearing woman. She believed, and she did not shake at all. And she stood firm in her belief. And if it was a struggle for her, and that was unusual at a woman at that period of time in our history, she stood firmly. She stood by her man. She stood by this religion, and she did not waver. And she went through a lot from a woman's standpoint of view of dealing with a relationship that she had to go through at that time. She struggled financially, but she did not waver. And it's that kind of old time religion that reminds me of, say, like what my mother went through. You know, what Black women went through during that period of time. We always talk about what the man went through, but the beast of the burden was on the woman, raising her children and keeping things intact. And she did not waver from that. That's the strength that I saw. That this, it reminded me of like my family and my mother and my grandmother that they went through, and the way the story was told from Zakiya. I wasn't in the Nation of Islam, so to read this about her, I'm standing on her shoulders. You know, the struggles that we have now, we're standing on Sister Clara Mohammed's shoulder, because she with to a degree, without her, the Nation of Islam. Now, this may be partial. Brothers may not agree with this, but the Nation of Islam wouldn't have been what it was without Sister Clara Mohammed.
It wouldn't be. That's a fact.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been. Yeah, it wouldn't have
that's
been.
A fact.
Because all I knew about when I came in Islam was Elijah Muhammad, peace be upon them all. We didn't know I didn't know anything about Sister Clara Mohammed. I heard about the Clara Mohammed schools, but who was she?
And interestingly, from the first document, from the first study of the Nation of Islam, all the way through almost up to now, there have been so many things written about the Nation of Islam, Elijah Muhammad. Sister Clara Muhammad was only mentioned in passing.
Right.
You know,
Right.
kind of just kind of like an appendix or something like that, you know. I mean, that's, but the other thing too, which is interesting, I think that people have to understand, because, you know, today we're in the area of all of this postmodern construction and feminism and everything. Sister Clara Muhammad was not a victim. People have to understand that, because, you know, there's a tendency for, once you read her full, she was conscious and she stayed on her post. She was a strong woman, but no one can sit up and say she was victimized, okay? Because there's a tendency to do that. As later on in her life, the different changes and things she went through, she stayed focused, just like her husband stayed focused. He stayed focused on his task, even though he was he was condemned by the rest of the world, the Muslim world and everything, you know. But Sister Clara stayed focused in terms of internal things were going for her, because she made the promise to Farad Muhammad to take care and nurture her son, Warithuddin. And she did that.
But it went deeper than that, to the degree that she defied her family. Mm-hmm. Her family did not want her to marry Elijah. She defied her family and married him. They went off and got married, and she stayed with him.
That's right.
It did not, all the trouble that women have in marriages, she never faltered. Her belief in the Almighty God, this is what gave her strength. She had a deep conviction before she accepted Islam, in her faith and belief in God, because she came from a religious background. So her faith was stronger. It just grew. It got stronger and stronger. She accepted Islam, but she never wavered, like you said, brother, in her support for this religion, her belief and faith in God, and she never wavered in her support for her husband.
That's right.
Never. She didn't. In the nation, she put everything else. Her strength and her belief allowed her to put all these other things, herself behind, and put this in front of her, because it was bigger than her. She realized that. She realized that this movement, this belief in the Almighty, it was bigger than her, and she didn't falter on that at all. Not at all.
Judy, I would just like to add that the educational background of Clara Mohammed was pretty prestige for the time. She went to school in the early 1900s, 1910s. All right. She went all the way up to the 8th grade. That's like probably getting a PhD in today's economy and culture. So she was much more educated than Elijah Muhammad. An 8th grade education, even my grandparents who went to school in the 1920s, they didn't get an 8th grade education. So she was like Miss PhD. But the pivotal point about Clara Mohammed is she went to hear Fard Muhammad speak. And she said, this man she's never heard anybody talk about the African people like this man had. And she said, he can probably help my husband. That's right. And she and her friend went home and she told Elijah, you know, you got to come. This is why she's the mother, the founder of the Nation of Islam, is because she heard the word first. And she was convinced that this was a solution for her husband, which it became. Mm-hmm. And if it wasn't for her insight, her background, her education, her logic, her rationale, she wouldn't have been able to pull her husband over there. But she was on to it. It's something I think Imam Muhammad had said a long time ago, decades ago, something about that natural nature. I'm not going to repeat it, but it wasn't the fitra, but she just had a natural ear. She had a hunch. She had a gut feeling. She had a premonition that this was it. And she was going to bring her husband back the next day. And this is what is so important.
Intuitive perception. Intuitive perception.
Definitely. And when I speak to people, people are like, no, I didn't know that Clara Mohammed, brought Elijah Muhammad to hear Fard Muhammad speak. Yes, that's why she's the mother of the nation. They don't get it. This is why, because she birthed it. She birthed it for us. And whatever she heard, like you said, Judy, she just kept going because the mission was bigger than all of us. And her son was growing at the same time. He was developing, he was coming into his own. He was studying his Arabic, he was studying the Quran. He was having differences with her husband. And she knew that, it's like my little grandson, he's 5, but I know he's on a roll to something big. And Clara knew that her son, Warf Dean, was on a roll to something big. And he had that Arabic down pat. He had been studying for years. And whatever casualties came to the side, that was okay, because she knew that her son was, as the light shineth from the east, so shall it shine from the west. And that's what her son did. He shined it for all of us.
And one other thing, Jamila, on that point, is we all know nothing happens without the permission of Allah. Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And regardless of what people say and think about the Nation of Islam, and I can honestly say this because I wasn't in the nation, that was the door that Allah opened up for hundreds and thousands of us to get to the religion of where we are now. Allah could have done anything that he wanted to do to bring us to this religion. But this, for whatever reason, I don't know, but this is the door that we walk through to get to where we are now.
Mm-hmm.
This was the beginning for a lot of us that made, quote unquote, that transition. This was the door that I had to walk through, because I don't know if I would have accepted Islam if it had came from another source. But coming from the people that I knew, the African Americans, when I took my lesson down at Masjid Wali Muhammad, temple number 1, this was just because I accepted Islam in 1977. So this was, the transitions was just beginning to start. But if it had not been for that, if it had not been for the Nation of Islam, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Sister Clara Mohammed, I wouldn't be where I'm at now. This was a lot. This is the door I walked through. I walked through temple number 1. And that's what it was called then, when I accepted Islam. They had changed the Masjid Wali Muhammad. So regardless of what people may think, because we had a little pushback, and Brother Mario's on the phone, because when people look at this title, Mother of the Nation, they could misconstrue this thinking this was just the Nation of Islam. But the title is bigger than that. The Mother of the Nation. We're talking about the way hundreds and thousands of us came to this religion as a result of what Sister Clara, may Allah be pleased with her, what she allowed us to, she was the impetus behind this. So it's a little more than that. We people can say what they want to say, but we wouldn't be here now if it wasn't for Allah's will to let us come through that door to accept the religion of Al-Islam the way we are now. So,
and I think realistically, even during that period of time, people have to look at what was the Islamic landscape in America in the 30s? Okay, what other influences were there? Okay, that's something that people need to look at, because one, of course, I think probably one of the oldest groups in America was the Ahmadiyya Muslims. Okay, and they had originally come to England, I think, and they came to America to try to do dawah with white folks, and they realized that wasn't going to work. So, so I believe, you all might correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they started around about 1928, I think, first, and I forgot his name, but he was one of the people who came and tried to spread Islam among African Americans. And of course, unless you understand our culture, unless you understand what conditions and things that we came through as a people, it's very difficult to and this is why the Islam that we were taught was at that time was tailored to our particular unique experience as Black people. Because we weren't, quiet as it's kept, there was some who would have, but we weren't going to accept a stranger coming and tell us something about a strange religion. You know, that wasn't going to work for most of our people. And understand this, though, this is what I think in a historical sense, people really have to understand that in the 30s, you had to write a letter, okay, to join the Nation of Islam. The letter had to be perfect, okay? Now, of course, with 2021, do you realize how difficult that was for illiterate Black people in the 30s? Who couldn't even read, what they had to go through. And this is why we say this is next to the prophet, prayers and peace be upon him, in Medina, teaching what we call the first public school. This is what happened to us, because most of the people in the 30s who came into the Nation of Islam, they were poor folks, and they were functionally almost illiterate. And so think about the power, and once you heard that teaching, think about the desire in yourself I want to be part of this. I want to be part of this. I want my name on the book of life. So, and I remember Imam Muhammad saying not only that, but one of the other things too, do you know how much it took for Black people to stop eating pork? That was the fundamental part of our diet. So already, these things were, I just want to share that in terms of the time, during that period of time in the 30s, what was going on in the landscape of America.
I agree. And to back that up, there's a hadith that says the best of you before the religion is the best of you in the religion.
That's right.
Clara came from a religious background. Even in the interview with Imam Muhammad, he would say, I would often hear my mother singing hymns.
Spiritual. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So this was her way of life. This was what was sincerely in her heart. It's that the song that you just can't take out the heart. She was like in an eclipse between Christianity and Islam, but the feeling was so deep, but she couldn't articulate what it was, but that premonition was there that it was going to be great. And even in her hymnal, those are like vicars that, pleading to Allah, to, put my baby Moses safely in a basket and send him down the river. And that was Imam Muhammad, just praying that he would land on his feet, and he did. But this is the mother's prayer. Sami Allahu liman hamida. Allah hears those who praise him. I mean, we had a lot of religious people in the 30s. This is all they knew. They didn't know literature, but they knew their prayers, their songs. So this is a plea to God. And this is why Allah is Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim in every chapter of the Quran. He's so merciful and so loving.
And then what she also did during that time of the 30s, the 40s, and the 50s, she brought a dignity to women that that were on the low rung of society. You know, we had a lot of organizations back then, and they more or less dealt with the upper middle class, you know, the quote unquote Black bourgeoisie.
Mm-hmm.
But Sister Clara Mohammed brought a dignity to the women that did day work, to the women that were just out on the street. The way she dressed herself, because these were just like the poor people that came, and the men and the women that came into the nation at the time. This was who the religion appealed to. The upper middle class, whatever it was at that time, it trickled in, but this religion came, you know, Black Bottom, Detroit. You know, this area doesn't even exist. This was, you know, this is where we all lived. This is where my grandmother and them lived on Hastings Streets in Detroit. We were poor people. But Clara Mohammed, she brought a dignity to women of that lot that wasn't seen before, that I know of, and I could be wrong, correct me again, that we did not have. She dressed. You know, she was modest in her dress. There's a point in the book, I think, when she said she got on the bus or something, and people were looking at her because she was covered in the way she was dressed. And she, you know, she looked at them. You know, they're looking at her as if to say, look how you dress. And she looking at them to say, well, look how you dress. You know, it wasn't written like that, but that's the feeling that I got. She was a dignified woman. She knew the importance of modesty back then. Back then, where Black women were the scrounge of the earth. You know, Black women didn't have any respect back then. This was coming off of a time where Caucasian men had their way with Black women, and there was no protection for us at that time. And Sister Clara Mohammed brought a dignity to the women of the nation. You know, the dressing, the cooking, the clean. You know, we got a list of things that you had. You know, the MGT, the Muslim Girls Training. You know, certain things. You know, at 12 o'clock, you should be dressed. You know, there was a list of things that she brought a dignity to the African American woman that we didn't have at that time. And I'm not saying there weren't other women at the time that did not do great things. We could go on, Mary McCall Bethune, Ida B. Wells, and we can go back and listen. But the woman that was in the street, the woman that was in the gutter, these are some of the women, just like the men that came into the Nation of Islam.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the poor, rejected, the despised. Was it with the men? Was the women the same thing? So she has a very significant. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. It's interesting you mentioned that, because I want to interject this. I don't know. Now, there might be throughout the entire Muslim world. I know in different places, different communities, and the way they dealt with it. I have not seen in one document the curriculum, the MGT curriculum, that spoke about what Muslim women eat, dress, how they conduct themselves at home and abroad. You know, that document is still relevant, and I have not seen anything. I'm not disparaging anybody, but I have not seen this specific curriculum manifested in any of the other parts of the Muslim world. You get different bits and pieces, you know, but you take that document, possessions of a Muslim women, how to dress, how not to be eating out in the street while you're walking, how not to have your children stay at other people's houses at night, those kind of things, you know, particularly, and a dress, of course, you know. And you could see that she had studied what we call today high etiquette of the people and, of other women, and this is the what I call the regalness, the dignity of her dress, as an example of how to conduct, what was the MGT, how to conduct yourself at home and abroad, right? And that was the curriculum. And I would challenge anyone to find a curriculum like that intact in one document, any other place in the Muslim world.
And a lot of emphasis was put on us as an African people.
That's right.
It was not that we're not trying to emulate the white folks. We didn't, it was not a lot of emphasis putting on, the straightening your hair and the way you would dress and prim and proper.
Makeup.
Like, yeah, like she taught us how to take pride in who we were, a people of African descent, and be proud and learn about our history, our culture, where we came from, and to take pride in that and the contributions that we were able to make, the things that we were able to do in society. She didn't want us to emulate the white people, use proper diction because that's the way you should be, not because another race, a superior race, and we were subconsciously trying to be like them. That wasn't her MO. She wanted us to be proud of who we were, a people of African descent, and to know our history, who we were, where we came from. And those kind of things to me were very, very, very important.
A famous writer today, Ishmael Reed. I don't know if you all are familiar with him or not, but he's a great writer. I consider him on the same level as James Baldwin today. But he wrote a book called The Complete Muhammad Ali, which was interviews with everybody who knew me. But in that book, he called Sister Clara Mohammed the mother of Black studies. Okay, that's what he called her. Because if you think about it, teaching our history, the curriculum that was developed around her table and then gradually evolved into the University of Islam and then Clara Mohammed School, who was teaching Black history during that time? Who was talking about Africa? Okay.
Well, some of the things she said, and Zakia had put this in the book, Clara's guidance to women.
Mm-hmm.
Be honest, honorable women. Don't just sit around with nothing to say. If you have something to say in your mind, you want to say, take your time. Do not do anything in anger, but speak up for yourself. Always have a voice. Never be a yes kind of person. Don't ever be a doormat. Don't let anyone run over you. Always seek Allah's guidance first. Learn as much as you can. When the sun comes up, you should be up. Even if you don't feel well, clean and dress yourself and you will feel better.
That's
Your
right.
house must always be neat and clean. Make yourself presentable if someone was coming in. Make sure you take care of your children. Be careful with them. Always be clean. Make certain before you open your mouth, you are correct, that you speak the truth, and that you never ever do anything to shame yourself, your family, or Allah. Her guidance to women. So, I'm sure we've heard back at the time, these are things my mother, would have said to me and did.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and then the diet, her cooking, how she created what we call the Muslim cuisine, right? And another thing too, in terms of the sisters, she kept her weight. From that time, she which is all part of the training of the MGT and everything, but she kept her weight, her figure and everything to her last days. And of course, that was a instruction to the rest of the sisters too. it completely changed the culture. You know, the cultural effects of the Nation of Islam, and her, of course, and Ahmadiyya Muhammad. When you look at how it moved into the larger African American community over the years, unless you have, you know, many people take certain things for granted, but if you look at some of these things, you see where the origin of them are, where the root of it was.
So what she did for us, it's you know, what she did for us is just undeniable. You know, why she's called the mother of the nation is just undeniable. You know, it changed my life.
Assalamu alaikum.
Hey,
Well,
walaikum
Alaikum
assalam.
assalam.
Alhamdulillah.
But just listening to y'all, I pray you take this video, this recording, and package it. And if you were just to present this video to any philanthropist, any investor, they would be moved to make sure this book is published. You wrapped it up in a detailed, personal experience way that no one could turn it down. And getting back to this is what Zakiya did. She captured all this. It hadn't been done before, and nobody can do it now.
Tell us about your relationship with her, because you had a long relationship with her.
Well, you know, Zakiya used to write a column in the Muslim Journal, and then she would come to Chicago as the director of education for the nation. The director of education, she would come to Chicago, but she was like Clara in a lot of ways. It was just her persona, the way she carried herself, the dignity that she presented, her mannerisms, her dress, her immaculate dress. She was a very impressive woman.
Yes.
And professional and educator, and she looked out for the sisters. When Zakiya wrote her articles in the Muslim Journal, it was a sister, Zeli Omar, out of Atlanta, sent me. It's in about a month ago. It was in Women's History Month. Zeli Omar sent me a column that Zakiya had written in Muslim Journal, and it was a letter to the sisters. And I didn't open it up, but I'm gonna email that to you all. It was so touching how she brought out all the things that sisters should be doing for each other, and how we should be. You have it?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That article was very touching, and it was very on time. And she mothered and shepherded and educated some of the most educated sisters we have. You know, she was in New York when Khadija Muhammad Drinker was a knee-high baby, wanting to go to Clara Mohammed School. And Khadija is now, you know, just got promoted to the head of one of the biggest news stations in the country. And she refers back to Dr. Zakiya and how she shepherded children, and how Khadija was so little, how she just wanted to go to school, to her class. But what she did with the Clara Mohammed's books is, like you have all said, we've all described her, and Zakiya has captured that, and nobody else has done it. You know, even her own research, she said she would find her name here and she would find her name there. It would just be a paragraph or something in passing, as she was the wife of Elijah Muhammad. But, you know, even that context of the Nation of Islam, and we talk about her being a religious woman, And the very apex of the Nation of Islam, in essence, was to break the yoke of white supremacy. So she was at that apex in our community when the Nation of Islam, the Elijah Muhammad, Sister Clara Mohammed, mentoring her husband, put us on the trajectory to break the yoke of white supremacy. I mean, how old had it been and how tight it had gotten around our necks? And that's what she did. When she took Elijah Muhammad to heal Farad. Clara is, when you look at times in history, Clara is Hagar. Clara is the prophets Khadijah. He talked about Clara as like the mother of Moses. And she's all of those things comfortably in her black skin. And that's one thing Imam Muhammad used to talk about. He would talk about her beautiful black skin and her pearly white teeth. And he would always relate how beautiful her smile was when she smiled, and those pearly white teeth on that black skin, how it was the most beautiful thing for him. You know, but we really got to get this book done. These 3 books. And Bilal, when you brought up the MGT, if it's not in the book already, we had to put an appendix in the back and put those lessons from the MGT, GCC Girls Civilization Training and have it in the back.
Yeah, we got to put all that there. We're going
We
to FOI, we got to put the problem book, the lessons, all of that is appendix. Yeah.
And
because everybody can get it in one, you know, it's scattered.
Yeah. And she,
you know, but we put it in one place.
And going through all the turmoil, coming, you know, Zakiya went to Georgia. Zakiya went to the libraries there. You know, she got up and did the footwork. She did all the research, scholarly research that would make this book accepted and recognized in all academic venues. Women's studies, African American history studies, United States history studies, and it's just a treasure that we can't let slip away from us, and we certainly couldn't have certainly can't nobody else do it now for us. You know, a lot of people like to collect history, but I was mentioning the data someone, yeah, but these people lived history. You know, we're just not collecting history. These people live the history that you're talking about, you know. So we really have to get these books done. And I think your discourse and conversation about her needs to be the package to get it over the top so that it can get to print and be positioned in the academic world and the social studies world in a way, and then Amir can tie it into the preservation in the museum to have its rightful place, you know. And she's all of those things. She you know, she started homeschooling. How many homeschooling professionals were there at that time? You know, and even now, you know, they go back to a few that they can represent to really start at homeschool, and that is taking their children out of the public school system and homeschooling them. You know, some places they didn't, like herself, there were no laws to protect her doing that. So she faced the wrath of the law for truancy for taking her children out. And she kept her composure. Like Judy was saying, out of all of that, she, you know, it was a lot going on all at the same time. But even, I didn't know Sister Clara myself, but I knew people who knew her, like Tahita Mahmoud, Sister Fern. And Sister Fern would take time. She took pleasure in sitting down and just talking about Clara Mohammed. She would talk about her so much that she would talk about how her dresses would hit the top of her shoe, like her dresses never dragged the floor, you know, and how she would have lace scarves, you know. And she was a beautiful woman, and she was a Black woman, and Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Nation of Islam itself, you know, like we were saying, we weren't emulating white America. We weren't emulating Asians. We weren't emulating Arabs. We were comfortable. We were made comfortable in our own skin. Maybe some of us had it before the Nation of Islam, but a lot of us, it took that Nation of Islam jolt and the protection and the reinforcement to bring us out of some sense of we had to emulate somebody else. We had to, you know, assimilate to be accepted and not stand out in the way of being ourselves. So I whatever I can do to help get these books published, and if the Lunch Good has reached out, then we can still run the ad in the paper, as well as put in a mailing address, you know, direct deposits where it can continue to run. I don't know. I don't even know if the Lunch Good can be continued or extended, but in terms of the raising the funds for the book, you can do some one-on-ones with this video, with this presentation to get some fundraising going. But whatever we can do to continue to raise the money for it, it has to be done. It just has to be done. And Zakia has done it. We just got to get it over the hill. We got to get it in the hands of the people.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah. So what will be the next move in terms of trying to raise some funds for it?
Bilal, Mario.
Mario. Brother Mario.
Well,
Brother Mario?
Mhm.
Is he online? Brother Mario? Well, Judy, you've been the one who's been close, you and Mary, so maybe you can talk a little about, you know,
well,
what
we're gonna continue. It's a discussion. It's a discussion to continue with the Launch Good, even though the donations have not been coming in
like
the
we
way we
expected.
would the way we would have liked them to come in.
Right.
But with the ad that was put in the Muslim Journal, we can, and thank you so much for that, Sister Aisha. We can still use that basic ad and get that out. And people that really want to support this cause, they can still make the donations. They can go to the IMAS website and continue to make donations. That way, they can continue to purchase the books. There's discussion. We're in a discussion stage right now as to how we're going to continue to secure funds to put this book out. And one thing that we did not put on the Launch Good was the profit from this of the book is going to be generated back into the community. None of us receive any compensation for the publishing, any revenue that's received from the purchase of this book. We just haven't detailed it out specifically, but there were different things that Zakia had put in place that she would have want to be done, where the funds basically would be going back to some of the Sister Clara Mohammed schools and establishing other peer review, just a lot of different things, which I don't want to just at liberty to say right now. But one thing for sure is that the funds will be distributed back into the community. This is not a profit-making venture for none of the members of IMAS. We just haven't detailed them, but the money, again, is not coming back to us. It's going to be distributed back to the community, to the supporting the Clara Mohammed schools, and even scholarships that we're in the process of developing different things. So, and these were the things, specific instructions that Zakiya left for us to do. So we're just going to keep moving forward as we have. You know, we believe in this. This is a labor of love. It has intrinsic value to all of us, and basically for our relationship with Zakiya. Because none of us, we knew each other, but because of what Zakiya did and for the love of getting this book out, she brought us together to complete this work for her. And this is basically what we're doing. People such as yourself that have come aboard to help us with this platform that Brother Amir is allowing us to speak on. Sister Clara Mohammed, you know, we cannot forget about the Clara, the project that they're doing in Washington, D.C., and people from around the country. We've heard from Imam Fahim Shuaib in Oakland. You know, he's lent his hand and said he would do anything to help us get this out, but it's just a labor of love that we're all pushing for right now. So
And
we're
like
open for ideas, suggestions to, you know.
Yeah. And like you said, this was our introduction to Al-Islam. You know, I came through the same portal, the same door that you came through, you know, a few years earlier. But this was our Islam. This was our salvation in essence. Whatever Allah intended, this is our bridge that they gave us something to cross over on. And so, you know, we really owe it to Sister Clara to see that these books are done, because, you know, all of it was our salvation. So, inshallah, you have a book party, publication party within the next year, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the people that the masses of, when they look at African American Muslims, you know, there possibly wouldn't have been a Muhammad Ali. May Allah have mercy on his soul. You know, there wouldn't have been a Malcolm X. You know, all these great people that came through. I mean, even maybe people that didn't come through the nation. You know, we got Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You know, these basketball players and stuff. You know, these
they were
some
all
of these
influenced.
rappers.
They were all influenced.
Yes, highly influenced by the Nation of Islam.
Right.
And
now let me go ahead.
No, go ahead,
sorry,
Bilal.
go ahead.
No, I'm fine.
Oh, I want to two things I want to mention when you talk about basketball players. The last month or so, one of the top 5 ball players in the world, Kyrie Irving, has become a Muslim.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Because you know he was a Duke. But the other thing I want to do for everyone on this line, Sister Aisha Muhammad is, well, you know, we go back. To me, she's a soldier. But what I want people to understand is this: there is no other Muslim women in the entire world who has been the major editor of a major publication as long as she has. Keep in mind, our newspaper has never missed a deadline weekly from Chicago. And Aisha, since 1985? I don't know of any Muslim women who, And I've studied this because I
89.
went overseas. Huh?
89.
You said what? 89.
1989.
Okay. But even before that, what you all don't understand, I just want to share this how remarkable this sister is. And of course, she's speaking to Clara Mohammed, because she's in that line, and she needs to be given her credit, because when she first came to Chicago, people forget that she was able to write up many of the speeches. You'd be surprised at what this sister's been able to do. And I've tried, Sister Aisha, I've tried for the last, 7 years to get you the type of recognition that you deserve, and I'm specifically talking about the Schoenberg, okay? Because there's no one else. Y'all can look at the history, so we're blessed to have a soldier with us, like Sister Aisha, because she's been through, just like Sister Clara had to go through a lot of stuff. You realize what Aisha had to go through? Huh?
Yes.
Well, you brothers like to test people, But Brother Amir,
Yes,
you still
ma'am.
there? We go
ma'am.
back too. We go back a ways, because Amir, Muslim Journal started trying to do the exhibits at the conventions and stuff, and I have to show up my conventions, and I call Amir, and Amir load up a van with all his stuff and drive halfway across the country and set it up and make us look so good. So I have to remember that, I called on a lot of people for help that showed up, that kept us looking pretty good most of the time. And Amir was one of those who always responded and accepted the call and put himself and his funds, because we weren't paying him. I don't know if I gave you gas. I probably still owe you some gas money. But he always responded. So, and that's one thing. One of the launches, definitely, Amir, I'm sure you will have it at the as a museum event for launching the books publicly, because this is really gonna put our community in a new light, because sometimes you have to go through different directions really to get the people. It will put the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in a new light. Those who already thought they knew him and they had already decided that they weren't gonna accept the Nation of Islam and they were gonna just, keep us tied into Minister Farrakhan. This kind of like says, yeah, but you haven't seen this perspective. You haven't come from this viewpoint. You haven't come from this side. And Sister Clara is still working on folks, and again, Zakia nailed it. So Sister Clara and Sister Zakia is definitely the focus. And get these
and
books
it's very
done.
important too.
Yeah. Get these books
And
done and get into the hands of these babies.
Right. It's very important too. I'm glad you mentioned this, Sister Aisha, in terms of getting this, because for the last, I guess, 2 years now, you got all of these so-called, they're Hollywood productions and a Netflix production, and most of them are completely inaccurate, okay? But they remind me of the Russian system of disinformation, how they rewrite history. And if we haven't told our story, these youngsters that, they're feeding into this, they listen to this. I was looking at 3 or 4 of these things, over the last year, supposed to be involved in our history. Now I give credit, I know they were Black produced and all of those kind of things, but they were historically inaccurate. And it's a pattern that's always been with our community, in terms of people projecting what they feel.
Yeah. And it's gonna get worse, because now everybody got access to the tools to create just their own history out of nowhere. The technology now, you got a smartphone, you can make videos. I actually got and create stuff that never existed, and now everybody's justified after coming behind Trump. I got an article that's called Bots, BOTS, computer bots in blackface. And it's about this actual IT guy who had set up his whole company as if he was a black person, and he was interjecting himself in all these black conversations all through social media. And one white reporter got wind of him and started to unravel his different addresses in the social media, and it finally got to the original address, and it was a white guy presenting himself as a black person and interjecting himself in all these black conversations. So the reporter that broke it, he wrote it as, now you got bots, you got computer bots in black faces, you know, like the minstrel shows when they used to perform in blackface. So it's gonna be pretty hard to distinguish fact from fiction pretty soon. It's too easy to come out with all these new creations and to produce stuff so fast. Even, you know, facial identity and stuff is just going off the chart. So again, this is one of those projects that really needs to be solidified, documented as it is, and put on the shelves. You know, get it done before anybody else passes. We have to get it done before any other soldier passes, and we losing them every week. You know, we losing somebody in the sense of they no longer here to do the work. They're passing on. Yeah.
One thing that's important about this book also is that we want to be in a position to tell we want to tell our story ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's very important, and we want this to be a major publication, and we want to get a publisher to put this book out there. And my head is up in the clouds. We want this to be a bestseller, but whether it is or not, we want to be able to control the telling of our own story.
Yeah.
And another thing I have to say, Sister Aisha and Brother Amir, without Jamila Malik, Mario Ahmed, Ajib Bilal, and Clara Mohammed, this project of getting this book published would not happen. You know, Mario is he's a think tank within itself. You know, he's a silent force behind this. You know, but without his expertise as a writer, you know, and the legal aspect that we want to make sure that this book is published in the right way, you know, this project wouldn't happen. You know, Jamila, she's been with IMAS, and we have our struggles with IMAS, but Jamila has been there from the beginning. And Ajib, you know, Mario and Ajib and Jamila, their relationship and love for Zakiya, and to see this book being published, it's been a labor of love for us all, and all praise is due to Allah. But, you know, there's a lot of people that Zakiya had talked to and knew that she was doing this book, because this was her conversation. It was just like she was giving birth, you know, she was pregnant with this book for years. But it was her selection. The Zakiya brought us together. It was Zakiya's selection to bring Jamila, Aaliyah, who's not on the call, Mario, Ajib, and myself, you know, together to get this project done. And there were other people that she had enlisted to see about this book, but the five of us, all praises due to Allah, was at Zakiya's request. This was not something that we just picked up on ourselves. Zakia brought all of us together to see
Right,
about
because
getting this book published.
we didn't know each other.
We did not
It's
know
just I
each
just knew
other.
Mario. That's all I
Yeah,
knew.
but we did not know each other at
Right.
all.
Uh-huh.
And this has been you know, you got 5 people. I'm in Detroit. Ajib is across the ocean. Sister Leah, she's in California. Jamila and Mario, they're in the DC area. So we're all over the United States. And it's
I
been
don't
a
know if y'all,
struggle, all of us coming together doing this.
you know, Zakia was just nonstop. She was like her brain went shut down. Y'all do know that she was starting a project to get Imam Muhammad's name exonerated for that draft evasion, right?
Yes,
Oh,
we
yes.
have the papers.
Yeah.
We have the
pardon.
papers for that.
A pardon.
A pardon.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have the
It was-
papers.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, we had to go through a big struggle with our community being recognized properly within that African American museum that they, we went through that for I think about a year, more than a year, dealing with the people there. But I tell you who, 2 of our greatest, because they were on the board, and that's Dr. Suleiman and Yang, and there was one other who, because they were going to write us out of history. I'm serious.
Yeah.
Because they were just going to talk about the Nation of Islam and treat the imam as some kind of aberration, right? And so it took, you remember, I think we had to work with that, but it came out okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Amir,
But
Brother Amir, do you have any
Yes.
other concerns or something you want to ask us or you want to add, please?
I would just want to add, what are some of the insights that youth may get from reading the book and looking at the life of Sister Clara Mohammed?
2 things come to mind, to me at least, is that the reality of that life in the South, but more important, in the book, the first volume of the book, it is really a very good history of the Black church teachings during that time, particularly our great Black preachers like Henry McNeil Turner. The schools that she went to, and she breaks down, very important. She breaks down the whole symbolism within the Christian church. She goes into all of the documents in terms of how we were portrayed in scripture, and I think that's very important because it really hadn't been, it's been done in bits and pieces, but it's never been done in the sense of someone reading that and understanding even what was going on, what was taught in the churches, And one thing I find is interesting, and this is part of the same thing, keep this in mind. The Elijah Muhammad, his Musali, Nathaniel, was talking about how his dad, Elijah Muhammad, his father was a preacher, right? But Elijah Muhammad said he can't teach what his daddy taught. He got to teach something different. Now look at the genetic line. Isn't that the same thing that Imam Wati Muhammad had with his father? So it was a projection of these teachings, but it's very interesting in terms of how this thing evolved, in terms of the teachings, But I think that is very instructive, that area, when you talk about, because we was all Christians during that time, and we had different parts of Christianity, but everybody was trying to work with what is our role as Black people in Scripture, And most of that was most of the time in relationship to not Jesus, but pretty much Moses, And I think that I think that would be very interesting for people to realize, because most people don't see that, in terms of the history. We're talking about 100 years ago almost. So that's one aspect of it.
Alhamdulillah. Anybody else?
And then the significance of that is to the degree that the Christianity then and now, it has a strong hold on our people. And Sister Clara Mohammed and her husband, she broke through that. So that took a lot back then. We were oppressed economically, socially, religiously, and she broke through that and took a stand with the Nation of Islam. That was significant. So telling that history the way it was at the time and to see how they forged through that, that's very significant. You know, that's what I think. So alhamdulillah. And Amir, thank you so much.
And also,
for
Thank
allowing
y'all.
us
and
this
it's
format.
documented too. That's yeah, really. And you know that the thing also is documented. So you see something, you can go in back and she elaborates on it in her footnotes, you know,
Right.
which in itself, the footnotes just in itself, if someone picked up the book and just read the footnotes, they would get some sense of what's going on. Because she explains all of these things, the origin of all of these. I mean, it's amazing, you know.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Two other things. Where can they get the book? I know it's good online, Amazon.
Yes, they can go on Amazon, and that's how we're distributing the book right now, through Amazon. Just Mother of the Nation, they can go on Amazon and purchase the book there.
And it's the Mother of the Nation. And as far as donations, how can someone donate?
They can go to our website, imass.usa.org.
IMAS, IMAS.
Right. -USA, or they can go to the Institute of Muslim American Studies, and it'll take them to that website. And then they can some information that we have listed there. We have a Facebook page, we have YouTube, and then there's a donation, and they can make donations on the website.
You can make donations on the website as well as on your Facebook page?
Yes, it'll lead them to the website. Mario, I think I'm correct, but I know on our webpage, they can make direct donations on our webpage. imass.usa.org. Institute of Muslim American Studies.
And that is a nonprofit organization.
501c3, yes, it is.
Okay, so please donate to help publish the book, and and purchase the book for yourself and for your children's future. It's very, very important to be able to tell our story, because we don't tell our story, nobody else will. It's very important. Anyone else like to share before we close?
I'm not sure, but I started a PowerPoint, but I'm just having a little technical difficulties with my Google, but I can share just quickly some of the slides that I put together.
Okay.
Just to begin with.
Oh, mashallah.
From Baltimore, Maryland, originally, and she grew up in a home very similar to the one here. And then we have our Georgia peach, very early picture of Clara Evans Muhammad. And those are peach blossoms over there, and how she changed the landscape of America. Beautiful picture of she and Elijah Muhammad. I'm looking at this because this was the town that Clara grew up in. And this is actually, I think it's symbolic of other things unseen. but this is a Masonic temple in Cordell, Georgia, where Clara grew up. These are African-American men in Macon, Georgia, who were working on the railroad. And from what I've read in research, that Elijah Muhammad also worked for the railroad in Macon, Georgia, and that was his ticket up north. This is a plaque from the Macon, Georgia Terminal Station about Jim Crowism, segregation. The year is 1916. This is all part of the Great Migration North. It's still there, colored waiting room, Macon, Georgia. This is the types of things that were etched in the minds as they traveled north, Elijah and Clara, with the Great Migration. This is another
Yeah, that's where my dad was from.
Again, Macon. This is where this is the stories that are being told. Let's go north to freedom. Let's go north. And the Pullman Porters, American Railroad, that was the ticket out of the oppression of the South. And that's all I have right now.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. That's wonderful.
Alhamdulillah. I do want to share this. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. The museum, we do have a handwritten letter from Sister Clara Mohammed that she wrote to the Sister Clara here in Washington, D.C. in 1957.
Ooh, wow.
And it's signed, you know, as Clara Mohammed, and she spelled the name Mohammed. And one thing unique that I could remember in the letter, she starts with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. She said, with the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. She does not say nothing about Farad Muhammad. She just strictly gives the salutation in the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. You know, I found it very unique.
Such a pure intention. Anybody who wanted to and dispute that intention, that's right out of the ayat from the Quran, you know, no shirk, anything. That's where her heart was. And this is what we keep saying about Clara, even though she had so many challenges and setbacks and difficulties, she was a woman of faith. And she knew 1957, maybe I was 1 year old. And she, you know, she's putting that on paper. That's the historic document. I think we need to put that into our PowerPoint along the way. That is just beautiful.
You know something?
I had half a century.
Something else I think we talked, but we neglected to mention that from 1942 to 1946, the Elijah Muhammad and his followers were imprisoned. Half of the community was in Milan, Michigan. The other half was in Sandstone Federal Correctional Institution. And it was Sister Clara who, along with sisters in with Temple number 1, Temple number 2, Temple number 3, Milwaukee at that time, she was the one who introduced the Holy Quran into the prison system. She wrote, the sisters would, they would write Quran, you know, they would translate, you know, in English, they would write the Quran, and she would give Elijah, when she saw him, she would give him pieces. And I know one of the first ones that she put in there, think about this, Surah Luqman. Okay, so she's responsible for introducing the Quran into the U.S. prison system. And of course, she ran the Nation of Islam from 1942 to the Elijah Muhammad got out of prison in 1946. The believers came to her. She issued instructions to them and everything. People forget that. I think it's you know, it's important just to, from a historical point of view for people to understand that.
You're totally right.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, we owe a lot to Sister Clara Mohammed. Really, she the one that brought Elijah there and held the fort down.
And she was strict, brothers. She was strict keeping that family together. Okay, I mean, really, during that period of time, I remember the man was talking about how strict she was. That actually, when Elijah Muhammad came home from prison, the imam said things would lighten up a little bit because she had that strong discipline on them kids. She, but she didn't play. She did not play.
Okay. Anybody else like to share anything else before we close out?
Bilal, do you know which English translation of the Quran that you wrote from? Was it Yusuf Ali?
Probably so, because at that time, those were the only things that were available. There were other, in America, English translation, because it wasn't until I think 34 that Yusuf Ali version was published in English, at least. It might have been before, but I think 19.
We use more of Maulana
and of course,
Ali.
that was kept. Those were kept under lock and key in these libraries. Huh? You said what?
Yes, they used more Maulana Ali's translation that time in the early years.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. That's why people accuse us of being with the Ahmadiyyas. That wasn't the case, but that was the only thing that was available at the time.
That was available.
It was translated in English, and it was that's what. Yeah, that was what was available. And all the other Islamic literature, even that, in the major libraries. And I remember even the Imam mentioned this, even during the time he was minister in Philadelphia in 1958. All of the libraries kept Islamic literature under lock and key. You had to go in there. They were part of special collections. They made sure that we didn't have access to it.
And that's, again, part of the first surah revealed to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was Iqra, to read, to proclaim, to write. And Clara wrote, and that was 4 years of writing the Quran. She couldn't be swayed. When you write something, it takes on when you read it, you get one way. When you write it, it penetrates at another level. I heard in some places in Africa, they don't even teach children how to recite Quran until they first write Quran, so that it's embedded when you move it with your hand. It has a different absorption rate than if you just recite it. So having Clara written all of those ayats or chapters from the Quran and sending them, and having her whole group of sisters doing the same, typing on the typewriter. That's even another, I don't even know if they had typewriters or if they were handwriting them. But I have some of Zakiya's
handwriting.
I have some of Zakiya's archives here, and that her script was so beautiful and so eloquent. And I'm sure Clara only chose the best handwriters to write those Quran. It's just beautiful. I mean, this is pureness. 4 years, people don't know. They're writing the Quran. They're writing the English translation.
Yeah. And when you look back, I remember the Imam saying this, which is true with our community. People don't, Imam Wasi Muhammad said that the Quran came to us as a thief in the night, and we did not understand what it was until it already had taken its effect upon us. And that's so true.
Brother
You know,
G,
yeah.
the verse that the Nation of Islam used to recite at everything, the brothers, sisters, everybody used to recite this prayer.
Yeah, the Abraham spread.
Chilling my, and you know, it. I don't know if everybody in the nation even realized that it came out of the Quran itself.
Yes,
They thought it just came out of the
Right.
lesson, you know, but the verse itself is Surah 6:162. And I even mentioned it to someone and an immigrant that I didn't know that was the leading prayer for the Nation of Islam. Shilling my prayers and my sacrifice, my life and my death are all for Allah. And this is my command.
That's right.
And that was at the end of every meeting that we were in. You close it out with that prayer. That was straight out of Quran. You know, we probably thought Elijah Muhammad wrote it, but that was Allah's words.
Right. And I still say that prayer today. It is an affirmation for me. Surely I turn myself to thee, Allah, trying to be upright. And him who originated the heavens and the earth. And we're not the politicians. You know, that's what we said.
Right.
You know, we believe in one God.
People have to, I think that people have to understand this too in terms of this community. Right now, when we're speaking historically now, and just like any other place, you have a cutoff date. And the reason I say cutoff date, we have two distinct generations in the community prior to 1975. And now we have two distinct communities, two distinct, you know, parts of the community, two of them since 1975. So you're looking at a self-governing community over 4 generations that's evolved almost like a living organism. And one of the things that's so interesting about it is when you look at, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told us, he was not here, he was cleaning us up. And what people have to understand, that 40 years of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was our wudu. And by the time he finished, we were in wudu, and then we were able then to receive the Quran. We couldn't have done anything, you know. And the wisdom, and you know, I'm just explaining some of kind of the wisdom of things, but people, why you were searched when you came in the temple. One, of course, was people talking bad about white folks and Jesus and Christianity. So, but we didn't want you to hurt yourself. But the other thing about it is that gradually, you coming out the street, you got all these, you get searched. And, you know, you come to the temple to get searched, your brother's up all in your face. You know, if you're drinking, if you're smoking, if you're doing something else. And he said, brother, you can't come in here. So gradually what happens though, if you're interested, you begin to say, oh, I got to go to the mosque. I got to put my dope down, my gun down. And pretty soon you begin to get a respect for a sacred space, which in so many respects, it was so easy for us to come into the, you know, the wudu and everything, because we knew when you come to the masjid, but if you had to be, you know, prepared. You had to be in that frame of mind. And this was all part of the divine plan. That's the only way I can explain it.
It was a good analogy.
Yes, yes.
Even during the Ramadan that we celebrated in the month of December, what was that all about? First of all, the days are short. Okay, that's number one. But more important than anything else, think about this, because most of us, well, I'll speak for myself, but people my generation, I remember, you know, many of us, we became Muslims. And, you know, you in Christmas around your family, and they're doing this and that, and you got to keep your Ramadan going at the same time, interacting with your family. So it, you know, it was a test of your strength even. So when we began to celebrate Ramadan within the Muslim world, we were already prepared. We'd already been prepared, even though we didn't know it.
Yeah. And look, and I can share this with somebody said that, for many of us that are our Christian relatives, our Christian family members kept many of us straight.
Right?
That if we did something that we wasn't supposed to do, we know that. I remember one time when I was first coming into the Nation Islam, I went out with some of my old friends, and my mother said, Elijah Muhammad don't teach you that. And then so there's other things that people remind me. I remember one time we went out to eat at a restaurant, and this was years later that we started eating scavengers. Because I remember I used to tell my family we don't eat scavengers. Shrimp, shellfish, and all that. One day I was eating shrimp, and my father said, "I thought, boy, you didn't eat scavengers." So our family members will correct us. They know sometimes better than us. What Muslims are supposed to do and what Muslims aren't supposed to do. And our family members will remind us. You ain't supposed to do this, or Elijah told you don't do this. So the Nation Islam, Elijah Muhammad and Sister Clara Mohammed had a very strong influence upon us as a people, African American people, Muslim and non-Muslim.
I think
And
Clara,
the diet,
pardon me, Bilal.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I think that Clara would have a big smile on her face, because I remember my mother, she told me, you better quit making skirts with elastic in it, because you won't know that your waistline is stretching. And she told me that I need to keep making my skirts, those long skirts, with a waistband and a zipper. And she tried to coax me out of putting elastic in the waist. She said, that's not good for you.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
They not had parents. My parents, they pulled my coat on things. Very much so.
Yeah.
But as you were saying, Bilal, you were saying something?
No, I was just talking about the influence on the diet that people didn't realize in the Nation of Islam in Black America. Okay. And the interesting thing is we popularized, because the bean pie, but the other, the type of cooking that we had, healthy, eating one meal a day, but one thing I don't think people realize, though, there was a book called Back to Eden, okay? And it was really not popularized. And I remember it had been, in fact, it was in a factory somewhere, about two boxes of books. They were hardcover books, and they cost, how much it cost us in the 60s, man, $20 to pay for a book. But the Elijah Muhammad bought them and introduced us to them. And look today where Back to Eden is. It's all over that book. We publicized what was in that book, and it went out, And that was, as I say, our diet. It really revolutionized African American diet. When you think about it, we got soul food and different ways of cooking and everything, but then people know about the Muslim diet too, and the healthy aspect of the Muslim diet, and people, we all know today, when we look at some of the pioneers and even other people, they marvel at the fact that this brother over here, he's like 80 years old, looks like he's 60, got smooth skin. Same thing with the sisters, they eat well. They don't have to use makeup and all them. They're just beautiful skin and everything. That's all, And again, that was the result of our discipline, but also of our diet. And as we know, Sister Clara Mohammed had to teach people how to cook the Muslim diet, Muslim culinary science, right?
Yeah.
What's interesting too is that these things were gradually absorbed into the African American culture. So today, of course, we're going so far away from that time, it's difficult for people to really realize where these things come from. It's only us that really know where these influences come from, you know, because most of these teachings, by 1970, most of the quote unquote Black teachers in the Nation of Islam, doing for self and everything, by 70, most of Black America was in, it finally come to that conclusion, you know. Brother Amir? Huh?
Assalamu alaikum. I'm gonna excuse myself. My grandson is waiting on me.
MashaAllah. That's right. You're in New Medina?
Well, I'm doing virtual, so I'm getting ready.
Oh, okay. I hear you. Okay. Wa alaikum assalam. I love and I support to you, sister.
Thank you, Sister
Thank
Aisha.
you very much.
Thank you
Yes,
for all your support and your encouragement and everything that you've done to help us get this far. We appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Okay, and whatever you need me to do, just let me know. Okay, we'll get it done. We have to get it done.
Thank you for
thank
your
you so
40
much.
years of service.
Yes, ma'am.
Praise be to Allah. Thank you all. Okay,
Assalamu
brother.
alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. See you later, Amir.
Amir, you breaking up.
He playing his music. Okay, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Okay.
Okay, brother Amir.
Really, he probably needs to sign on. And, okay. Amir, do you want to put something in the chat?
Brother Amir, are you with us?
He's turned into a total digital.
Oh, okay.
He said it
so
looks like his mic has stopped.
Okay.
Brother Ajib, you just want to close out with a dua, please?
I'm gonna let you do that. I'm gonna let you sisters do that. Y'all should do that. Sister Judy or you?
We can't hear you, Amir. He's saying, okay, as far as that, you want to go ahead, Sister Judy?
Sister Judy, close us out, chairperson.
Oh, wow. Well, first of all, Amir, if you can hear us, I'd like to thank you for this format, for allowing us to come and share the work that we've done. Jamila, Mario, and Ajib, thank you so much for it's a pleasure working with you all. And Sister Aisha, thank you again, and we appreciate this. So we'll close out with our Fatiha. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Malik yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta alayhim. Ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Amin.
Amen. Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Alaikum assalam, rahmatullah. Let's stay in touch, Amir.
Okay. Sister Jamila?